Hello, my name is Csteindl. I'm going to talk about continuous delivery. Software development, and in particular custom software development, can mean a lot of stress. I mean negative stress. I've seen that people have to work really long hours, that people are not allowed to take holidays, and that people have to fight to keep deadlines. When I was still employed by my former employer, 2 people committed suicide and 5 people had a burnout during 5 years, just 5 years of custom projects. I survived all that negative stress, thankfully. I had learned my lessons and I wanted to set up my own business, Catalysts, differently. One of our topmost values is that we want to be able to sleep well. We don't want to see projects becoming troubled projects all the time, and we don't want to fight fires all the time. What you have seen is that continuous delivery is an important ingredient for peaceful nights. During the last couple of years, we have seen some projects fail and some others succeed. Let's compare 2 projects in the banking sector, where an old banking system had to be replaced by a new one. On the left side, we see the traces of a big bang project. It was based on Finical with a lot of customization done in something like Visual Basic. The project started in 2009 and was expected to be finished in 2015. There were some indications of trouble, so the project was reviewed in late 2013, where Catalyst was part of the review team. What we have seen was a disaster and led to the immediate cancellation of the project. That involved a writing off of an investment of 200 million euros. On the other hand, we have a project with early and incremental releases. The project started in 2010. The first workshop with the business department was conducted in April 2011. And the first version was released to a limited group of people in May 2012. That means not even 2 years after the start of the project. The first general release happened in November 2012, and ever since then we have incrementally shipped feature releases. The new system is in parallel operation right now with a legacy system, which shall be turned off in 2016. We didn't have continuous delivery yet in that project on the right-hand side, but we had the first release in the user's hands after less than 2 years. That is, after 1/3 approximately of the project overall duration. And that had some profound effects. In a typical project, the support from the executives is high or very high in the beginning before the project kickoff and shortly thereafter. But once the project gets going, there is little left to be done by the executives. And the project typically doesn't keep the executive informed anyway, so the support decreases and it stays low for some time. If there are positive signals from the project, the executive may again become more and more interested. And if the project ends successfully, the executive support is again high. But guess what happens if the project doesn't show good progress? With early releases and with them frequent incremental releases, we have seen that executives keep up their interest and their support. And that's a major effect, one that makes it easier and more likely for the project to become successful in the end. Another effect is about user acceptance. In a typical project, it might happen that users are not exactly enthusiastic about the new software. If you deliver the first version to the first friendly users, and if you involve them in the product development process, you will witness something interesting. You do not have to push software to your users. They will want the software. They will pull the new software from you. Likewise, they will provide you a lot of feedback, and that also is the first of a couple of challenges. Like they will provide you with a lot of feedback. You might need a really strong product owner to take care of all that feedback. The software might also be used in way more different user scenarios than you have dreamt of. That's positive since you get to know about all those specialties early on, but it may also become a burden if your ambition is to support all those usage scenarios well. And finally, the users are very creative in how to make best use of the new software, which again can result in new feature requests, but it also fosters high user acceptance. Interestingly, those 2 factors were the 2 most important factors for project success according to a large survey of hundreds of projects in 1995. That was called the Chaos Report. You can find that on the internet as well. So If we now turn to the current literature about continuous delivery, you will read the following statements already in the foreword by Martin Fowler, a chief scientist at ThoughtWorks. Bi-weekly releases, that's hard enough for most teams. Few teams release more often than every other week. Releasing becomes routine, well, of course, if you do it regularly. Reduce the cycle time between an idea and usable software from many months to one iteration or less. Continuous delivery does not necessarily mean that we have to release new software multiple times per day, but it will mean that we rethink the way we develop software, especially the part that comes after software development, all the testing activities. Traditionally, we have some testing or quality assurance activities that come after development. Let's say that we start developing software in a test-driven way. If all the tests are green, that means we pass the quality gate and the software is released to the functional testers who perform the acceptance tests. If the functional tests are green, the system integration tests are performed to check whether the software integrates well with other systems. And if the system integration tests are green, we may perform load and performance tests. And if those load and performance tests are green, we ship the software. That's the typical way how to ensure high quality and how to avoid a lot of errors to appear on the user screen in production. But implicit to these quality gates is a big problem, a psychological problem. The more you increase control, the more you will also decrease responsibility of all team members. On the lowest level, quality assurance just has an advisory role. They can advise and explain something to the team members. The next level is called monitoring, where the quality engineers can check a team member's work. If something is wrong with the results, QA can instruct the team members to delay their work to do more testing. And they can even report higher about the team member. The third level is called auditing, which gives decision power to QA. They may now stop the work. They may stop you from releasing the software. Finally, on the prescribing level, QA can define and enforce rules as they like. Initially, a healthy team would consist of team members where every single team member takes quality to his heart. But the more you monitor or audit and prescribe, the less do team members feel that it's their personal responsibility to deliver the highest level of quality. Why? Well, because obviously there's somebody else who takes care of quality. And that's bad. So basically, the release is where the rubber meets the road. Only when you put your software in actual use by actual users, you will learn whether your software is fit for the purpose or not. From common sense, we can tell that we should release software early and we should release software as often as possible. And that leads us to an interesting aspect. How often can we actually release software? Well, it depends on how expensive it is to release your product. On the right side, we see that there are scenarios where it's very difficult and expensive. We can only release infrequently since we develop software and hardware. Next to it comes firmware. Firmware is slightly easier than hardware. Then comes boxed software or shrink-wrapped software. But just figure out how often you install packages like Microsoft Office. It's only a couple of years that every couple of years that you'll do that. And finally, on the left-hand side, we are in our core domain of software as a service, where we can easily deploy new software on a central server multiple times a day if we want. Looking at that spectrum, we, meaning Catalysts, currently have one project where we develop the hardware and the software, which will be sold under the name Ycon. And we have many other SaaS projects, for example, Core SmartWork. I think we are now more interested in the area where continuous delivery is possible, so let's look at the left part of the spectrum. Let me expand slightly on Core SmartWork. Core SmartWork is a product for employee relationship management. It's about finding the right people, developing their skills, organizing them into teams, identifying the experts, and managing ideas. It's also about communication, corporate communication from the company to the employees, discussion forums, and blogging question and answers between employees and experts. In total, Core consists of 12 modules currently, with a lot of interconnections. The first software supplier tried it with a big bang approach and failed on a grand scale. They had expended 80% of the budget, but upon closer inspection, the software was not even 20% finished. We, meaning Catalysts, took over in February 2013, and we had the first test release ready in March, just 1 or 2 months later. We even presented the full software with tons of mocked screens actually at an international HR human resources conference in Stuttgart in May and got lots of valuable feedback. We put the first couple of modules into production at the first customer in June, and we deliver bug fix releases up to once per day, and we have regular feature releases every 2 weeks since then. The IT leader at the initial customer, Phil, is a very critical person, but we received a really very positive statement from him in June 2013. He said, in all the 20 years that he had been working at Phil, he has never experienced that software has been put into production so smoothly. So let's look behind the curtains, how we delivered this software. We have been rethinking the testing activities. Basically, we don't do anything differently, so we do all the different testing types, but we do those integrated into the 2-week iterations. At the start of an iteration, the team is free to refactor and change a lot. When features become done, quality engineers test them functionally. After 1 week, we have the first release candidate, which we already moved to our own production environment. After another 2 or 3 days, we get the second release candidate. And at the end of the iteration, we have the stable release, which we then make available to all the external customers. We can only be confident enough to move the already first release candidate to our own production environment if we have done enough system integration tests and enough load tests. And of course, these have to be highly automated. We don't invest too much effort into automating manual tests. Why? Well, we know that there will be a lot of changes to the GUI until it's stable. Automating functional tests via the GUI, the user interface, would lead to a lot of rework. And since the software is already in production, we can be sure that we ourselves are the first manual testers. By using the software ourselves on a daily basis, we can be sure that we will cover most features automatically. And if there is a critical bug, it will take at most a day until the bug fix is deployed, so it's not that hard. As I've said before, our goal is to sleep quietly. I can say that I truly sleep quietly well, and due to a lot of technical practices that we have put into place, namely continuous delivery, we can sleep well. We do not want nasty surprises. And that's where there's the difference between theory and actual catastrophes. Like, without continuous delivery, you have to expect that the system looks good in theory, but that it's actually a catastrophe in operations. Let me give you another example. A large logistics company had their core system rewritten with an effort of more than 215 person-years. At the end of the development, they arranged for a load and performance test. They did not expect problems because they had chosen an architecture where a lot of processing is done already on the client side. So they expected little server load and no problems with scalability. However, the actual feedback from the load test was slightly different. The main business operation for a logistics system is creating transport orders when something has been transported from one point to another point. And it took approximately 2,000 database queries for creating one such transport order. You can imagine that it didn't take many concurrent users to bring the system to a halt. The system could only be scaled with massive hardware investment. However, this information could have easily been identified with simple load tests integrated within their regular work in each iteration. And guess what? The software developers had a good feeling that the performance was not great, that already a single user had quite an effect on the system. A different example is Twitter. There are many tutorials out there in the web where the tutorial shows you how to implement something like Twitter in just 30 minutes or 2 hours, depending on the framework. But of course, there's a huge difference if you develop Twitter just for yourself or for a small group of people, or you develop Twitter in a way that also fulfills the needs of 800 million users around the globe. Let me recap the talk with a summary image that I didn't draw myself, but you can see the source from where I got it. First, build quality in. And don't try to increase the quality afterwards, after the developers say they are finished by adding testing activities. Second, done means released. It's not done earlier, and this definition of done is an extremely hard definition of done. Third, the team members will feel empowered and they will feel less stress through the much more often and much smaller releases. The continuous delivery pays off from a team member's point of view. And fourth, you will have greater collaboration and responsibility among all team members, and that's good. That's it for my short talk. Please feel free to raise any questions to me or contact me via any channel that I've written here. Thanks for listening.